Hello YouTube, this is VidHead85 and thank you so much for joining me for this episode here. This is a best of Redditor update kind of thing, and it involves baby trapping. Baby trapping is usually when someone uses deceptive means in order to get a woman pregnant. Usually the woman, if a woman baby traps, she will usually go off birth control. If a man baby traps, usually it involves coercion or violation, pretty much. So, but this one here is where OOP, her husband accuses her of baby trapping, and we're going to get into this. And I love the update. There is an MVP in here that I absolutely love. So why don't we get going so we can introduce them. OOP's husband believes she baby trapped him. This was in February of 2023, and here we go. My husband, 35, I, female 32, have been married for 7 years. He lived next door and we just clicked. It was like a fairy tale. One thing I have always thought made our marriage so strong was our friendship with each other and our trust in one another. Although now my husband seems to think otherwise. Recently, my husband found out that his friend Geoff, 34, male, has been baby trapped. Basically, Jeff's wife, 32, stopped taking the pill and fell pregnant a few months into their relationship and only came clean after the wedding. Jeff comes from a very conservative family, which his wife knew, so he felt obligated to marry her after the pregnancy. Unfortunately, he also now feels obligated to stay regardless of clearly messed up dynamic because he feared that he has made a vow and will stick by his wife and child. My husband, for some reason, has been rattled by this. I'm currently 4 months pregnant with our first, and my husband asked me yesterday if I was trying to baby trap him. I first laughed, honestly, because I thought it was a joke. He was dead serious and doubled down, so I told him that we had already been married for 7 years, and a baby was not going to trap him any more than he already was. My husband did not like that answer and said there was no time limit on baby trapping, and that my intentions were clearly not pure given how I was acting as if his comments were a joke. He said he trusted me in the past, but my laughing in his face gave him no reason to trust me now. I did not really know what he wanted or how I was meant to respond, and I said we should just talk about this in the morning. So today I woke up and my husband was gone, but I did have a nasty text from his brother, male 28, saying that I forced my husband into this pregnancy, despite it having been a joint decision. My husband is MIA and not responding to my calls or texts, and now I'm wondering how on earth to go forward. Any advice is appreciated. Thank you. Update 2 days later. Not sure if I'm allowed to post here again, but I wanted to quickly update everyone who was kind enough to give me some advice. I didn't respond to anyone because my post was locked quite quickly, but I've read every single message and comment, and I'm very grateful. I realized while I was reading the comments that everyone was right. I wasn't angry enough. My husband had insulted me and our marriage in a very hurtful way, and it just didn't register for a while. I was so confused and upset that it didn't occur to me to be angry because I think everything just needed to sink in. In the meantime, my best friend, female 31, who has been such a rock in my life, she came over with some chocolate and was furious at when she heard. She called her husband, male 34, to the house after I had gotten everything out of my system. He is a family lawyer and he said that he would happily represent me if I wanted to go through with divorce. This man is a saint and will draw up divorce papers on Monday. My mother-in-law, female 66, showed up with my husband in the car not long after my best friend's husband arrived, and she practically dragged him to the door. My mother-in-law said that he showed up at theirs house late last night, saying that he was certain I was using the baby to trap him. Fortunately, mother-in-law is a smart woman and absolutely tore him a new one before dragging him to the house today to apologize. My worm of a husband did not look me in the eye the entire time, but said that he was scared about becoming a dad and projected those fears onto me. He said he wasn't sure if he was ready for that kind of commitment, but he will step up, as if he's some kind of hero. I don't know. I called him a coward and told him that he should stay with his parents until I'm ready to talk to him. I didn't want to say anything about the divorce papers because I didn't know what his reaction would be, but he will find out soon enough. I also showed my mother-in-law the text from my brother-in-law, and her face was like a storm cloud. I don't know what will happen there, but I am sure it will be bad. But for now, I am exhausted and just want to curl up and cry. My best friend has said she'll spend the night with me and we can watch silly movies. I've also made an appointment with the therapist for next week, but now I just need to rest. I'm exhausted and devastated, but my marriage has been crumbling down. Sorry for the sad ending, everyone. Then there's a new update on the 13th. Thank you to everyone for all of the messages and kind pieces of advice. I've received so many requests for an update, so I thought I would quickly post and let you all know how I'm doing. Overall, everything has settled a bit. In good news, I have had a scan with the doctor. My mother-in-law attended with me, and the baby is happy and healthy. I finally found out the gender, and I'm having a little girl! I am over the moon! My mother-in-law was a gem and was so touched that I had included her in the scan. She's very excited to be a granny. On that note, my mother-in-law organized a family lunch a couple of days after the scan. I was a little reluctant, but I knew she had good intentions and wouldn't do anything to make matters worse. When I arrived, my husband and brother-in-law were there, along with my father-in-law, male 70, and mother-in-law. It was quite awkward until my mother-in-law asked if anyone had anything to say. My brother-in-law spoke first and apologized for his awful text, saying he was swept up in the moment and wanted to support his brother. I explained how hurtful it had been to receive a nasty and vindictive message, and that he knew as well as anyone that my husband and I had been trying for almost a year. He hung his head and mumbled something. That was pretty much the last I heard out of him that afternoon. Next, my mother-in-law looked quite pointedly at my husband, and he actively avoided anyone's eyes. Eventually, she spoke up and announced that my husband would no longer be welcome to stay in their house. She said that she was ashamed to have her son behave the way that he was, and that she would prefer to make space for her granddaughter rather than to have some lowlife hanging around. So my husband had opened his mouth to say something earlier, but his eyes lit up when she said granddaughter. My husband always wanted a girl, and he was suddenly in tears, saying that he was pleased to hear the gender. My husband was suddenly wanting to touch my belly and asked if he could come home and paint the nursery. I told him in no uncertain terms that he was not welcome and that he had destroyed any trust I had in him. I told him that if I took him back, I would be worried he would disappear at any kind of big news, and that I couldn't have someone at my side who balked at the first chance. He asked me if I was telling him it was over, and I point blank told him that I had engaged a lawyer. My husband was kind of frantic, but I felt so calm, like someone had put a blanket over me in the situation. Normally I'm a big crier, but I felt so removed from everything. So my husband said that this was not fair. He had shown a little bit of panic, and suddenly I'm throwing away our life and denying him his daughter. My father-in-law reminded him that this is the same baby he felt trapped by no more than 2 weeks ago. My husband said that it was a mistake and he was stressed, but my mother-in-law asked him how he thought I felt. She asked him to imagine being so vulnerable and giving up your body to grow a family, and suddenly the one person you trust is accusing you of terrible things. He said it was a mistake, and he projected his fears onto me. I told my husband that I felt so broken when he left because I had all these dreams of a beautiful family which came crashing down in an instant. My husband said that he wanted those things with me, and he wanted our baby girl, but that he let the panic overwhelm him. I told him that wasn't a good enough excuse for what he has put me through, and that he certainly didn't seem panicked when his mom had to drag him to my door to apologize. He didn't have much of an answer than to say that he was ready now and wanted our girl. In all of this, and all of the times he told me he wanted me and our baby, he never once apologized properly. So, after a very, very long discussion, the lunch wrapped, and my mother-in-law stood by what she said about my husband not being welcome. He asked again if he could come home with me, and I told him that it was my house. I owned the house before we were married, and that it was going to be a safe space for me. That is to say, he is not welcome. As far as I know, he's staying at some hotel. Finally, he was served with divorce papers at work on Friday. My bestie's husband drafted them earlier, but I wanted to wait until I had thought it all through. I received a few missed calls and crying voicemails asking if I was really throwing away our family, but I did not respond. He even took a crying selfie sitting in his car, which my bestie laughed at quite a bit. My mother-in-law called me when she heard and told me that I'm making the right decision. She said she never wanted my marriage to end this way or for her son to be so callous, but she said she is here for the baby and I, and that we will always be family. She even tried to apologize on my husband's behalf, but I told her that was not necessary. At the end of the day, his actions are his own. My best friend has been around all weekend, and we went baby clothes shopping for a little bit of sunshine and all of this. She's been my rock, and her husband has helped so much with the process. I don't know what will happen next, but I feel calmer and like I am making the right decision. I will update again if anything major or exciting happens, but for now, I just want to get through all of this and hopefully come out with a beautiful baby girl. Wish us luck. So now, a few comments. The thing that gets me about this is his repeated "I just panicked" assertions is lots of about to be parents panic, or about to be anything for that matter. It usually goes something like, what if I screw up? What if I'm not good at it? What if I mess them up via my mistakes, and so on? The panic is more about possibly not being able to meet the needs of a person who will be depending on them. It doesn't usually take the form of, fuck this, you trapped me, I'm out of here, self-preservation, like this dude went with. He went to straight self-preservation and responsibility avoidance, and that says a lot about his character. She is absolutely right not to put herself in a position of being dependent on him when he has so clearly demonstrated that when the chips are down, he will only think of himself and will cut and run if that's what benefits him. Next comment. Why are you throwing away our family? All I did was accuse you of trying to trap me with the baby. We've been trying for and then abandoned you. It's a common mistake. Worried that I trapped you? Let me relieve these worries. Hands divorce papers. And the last one. I got his mom in the divorce is such an amazing flex. Good for OP. Okay, wow, this one was really crazy, the twists and turns here, but the fact that he was so willing to throw OP under the bus like that, I am so glad that things ended up well for OP, because, this is when she needs him the most, and he's cutting out on her, but I'm so glad that mother-in-law was right there and ready to go to bat for OP. And she is the real MVP here. Her best friend and their best friend's husband. Like, I'm so glad that the community gelled around her, and I am so glad for this baby girl to be surrounded with love and affection and just wonderful people who will nurture her into a strong young woman. And a strong woman who can rock this world and do amazing things. So, talk to you soon. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great one.